Carlos Padilla calls the fighters to the center of the ring. You see the tail of the tape there. George has a big, I suppose you call it disadvantage in age. He's 9 years old. And let's listen to Carlos Padilla as you look at the tail of the tape. The age, the 2 inches in height, and of course the big weight difference there. George also has a big reach advantage. All right, we're set to go. This fight is sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. The 10-point must-scoring system is in effect. The winner gets the 10 points, the loser 9 or less. The 3 knockdown rule is in effect in the state of Nevada. A fighter must get up following a low blow or he may be counted out. A fighter cannot be saved by the bell. There's a mandatory 8-count following knockdown. Scoring is based on clean hits, effective aggressiveness, ring generalship, and defense. We're underway. Big George Foreman in the blue trunks with the red and white trim. Aldison Rodrigues from Sao Paulo, Brazil. He is probably the biggest hero in Brazil since Pele, the soccer star down there. Big George with that jab. Look at those big, strong biceps of George Foreman. This telecast of the Don King Sports and Entertainment Network going all over the world. And a special hello to Chris Myrams and Clint Brown, TV3 in Auckland, New Zealand, who are joining us for all of our fights involving Mike Tyson coming up. And we're real proud that television down in New Zealand has taken such an interest in boxing. And great to have Chris and Clint Brown along with us in this telecast and all our friends across Australia and, of course, New Zealand. Round 1, both fighters kind of feeling each other out. Big George covers himself up and lets Aldison Rodrigues pound to the body. You got to figure that Angelo Dundee has told Aldison to jab and stay away from Big George. George hasn't thrown a big hand yet in the fight. George's straight left hand, he's so strong that his straight left hand is not a jab, it's a real heavy punch. It always was in his career, especially in the early side. And he sets up the big right hand off of that straight left hand. You see George trying to get it through, and Rodrigues doing a nice job of staying away from him right now. George, a prohibitive favorite in the fight. This betting area had to bet something like $900 to win 100 on George Foreman if you wanted to bet on George here. That was a big heavy jab to the bounce the head back of Aldison Rodrigues. Rodrigues came back and started throwing some punches at George, but George seemingly not affected by the punches of Aldison Rodrigues. George not breathing real heavy here in the first round. And of course, George in his entire career has had the record where first, second, third, fourth round knockouts were his style, even in the early going. And then since his comeback, most of them come early. And Rodrigues is a world-class fighter, and something different. The right hand gets through. The first big right hand that George has thrown, it didn't do too much damage to Aldison Rodrigues. But those left jabs, as we call them, but there's really like a straight left hand because they bounce the head back at Rodrigues. George, very powerful guy and very dangerous. And of course, everybody over 40 years old in the United States, and I'm sure listening to us and watching around the world, everyone over 40-something is rooting for George Foreman, with the exception of South America. I know you people down there love your man, Aldison Rodrigues. All right, the bell ends round number 1. Kind of an even first round where Aldison Rodrigues was the aggressor and George is satisfied to just throw a few punches. And it'll be interesting to see what he has to do a little bit later on this evening. He takes on Henry Tillman. All right, round 2. George Foreman and Aldison Rodrigues. Let's see if George tries to get a little bit more active. Aldison Rodrigues doing exactly in that I know the style that Angelo Dundee trains his fighters exactly as you could predict, and that's trying to stay away from George, make George move around, make George try to cut him off in the corners, make him chase him, mix it up, throw a shot, and then get away. And that's what Dundee will want. In fact, Aldison probably mixed it up with George more in the first round than Angelo Dundee would have wanted him to do. But, you know, when you coach a guy in between rounds, as you mix it up and the actual fighters get combative in the center of the ring, George getting a little cute on his feet and the crowd reacts to it. George fighting with that style where he crosses the arms in front of his chest and his face so he never takes a punch real flush. Even in the big loss to Muhammad Ali in '74, if you have had an opportunity to see that fight recently, Remember George tumbling like a wounded bull in the center of the ring, and Ali never really throwing the big heavy punch that could have flattened him. There's 2 heavy punches thrown to the body of Rodrigues. And while the punches that time are wild by George, you can see if they were up on the head like that one was, that there's power in those punches. A little bit of quickness with that. It was an awkward sort of right hand, but there's power there because of the sheer size. A man 263 pounds that may weigh as much as 275 today. The weigh-in was yesterday. There's so much power behind it. Those arms on George are like tree trunks. Of course, that has the biggest thing to do with the downside of George's career. When you see great big guys like this, real heavy arms get fatigued as the fight progresses. And again, in the comeback road, it's interesting to note that George has only had to go 10 rounds one time, and that was against Everett Martin in Tucson, Arizona in July of '89. And in that fight, he won that on a decision. Fighting twice in '90, in January and April, winning both. One with a 2nd round knockout and one with a 4th round knockout. So Rodrigues coming inside more than Dundee would want. He's open. There's a shot. A left hook catches him, and down goes Rodrigues. It looked almost like a grazing shot. It counts up to 5 and 6 and 7. He's not going to make it. It's 8, 9, and 10. It's all over. A 2nd round knockout for George Foreman. So George Foreman is for real. He has now defeated a world-class fighter with a 2nd round knockout. Watch, look for the left hook. He sets it up here. Right hand misses now. Here it is, bam! And down he goes. And when he threw it, it didn't look like it was that heavy. But Aldison Rodrigues, a guy who scored 26 knockouts of his own, really on Queer Street. He cannot recover from that. So we answer the questions in a hurry here. Can George stay in there with a world-class fighter? The answer tonight is definitely yes. Misses the right. Now watch the left hook. Here it comes. Bang, right there. And again, it didn't look like he caught him that flush, but George is so big and so strong that Rodrigues can't recover from it. You can tell by the way his body is kind of going around awkwardly that he's definitely knocked out. Comes. He misses with the right. Now it's just a left hand. Look at him. Bang. He just catches him. The head spins and down he goes. And the awkward position he lands in and the way he falls, he tries to get up here and he just can't recover from it. Big George is for real. And it really makes the heavyweight picture ever so much more interesting to have George Foreman involved in it. I'm sure the American networks will be getting in there to interview George, and maybe we will have the opportunity to tap into the interview and hear a little bit of what they're saying to Big George Foreman. And if we can, we'll bring it to you. So stay right with us around the world on the Don King Sports and Entertainment Network, because not only was the Foreman fight interesting the way it ended and how rapidly it ended, but Mike Tyson and Henry Tillman coming up.
The time, 2 minutes, 39 seconds. Of the 2nd round, the winner by a knockout, the former heavyweight champion of the world, George Foreman.